Hey everyone, welcome to the School of Self-Mastery podcast and Summer Friday series. My name is Adrienne Dorison, obviously, and I'm here with Michelle McGlade and Allie Horner, and I'm actually handing over the reins to them today. We've been interviewing all of them over the past few weeks on Summer Fridays, and you've been listening to their interviews, and they actually asked if they could flip the script and interview me. And so I thought that was an interesting concept that I've actually heard on a couple other podcasts where Farnoosh did this one time and she had someone come on and interview her. And it's always really interesting to hear that because I've been interviewed before, but never on my own show. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to hand it over to Michelle and Allie to interview me and give you, I guess, a little behind the scenes, a little business voyeurism on my life and business, and we'll let them take it away.
Yeah, because inquiring minds want to know. We want to uncover and discover your story too for your audience, obviously.
I know. I always wonder, do they know? Because, I think I shared a lot about my story in the beginning, but then I think sometimes new people come all the time and maybe they haven't heard it, because I don't continue to share it, or I think, oh, they must have heard it already because it's my story. I'm sure you both feel the same way. You're like, oh, I've already said that, but it's something we need to continue to share. And when someone else is interviewing you on it, it's way different than you just talking about it. So I'm excited.
Yes. Well, here, I'll just kick us off if that's okay, Allie. This is kind of the thing that I wanted to know since I first got to know you, Adrienne, but you talk about it all the time. You talk about getting up early, and that always stands out to me because I'm not an early morning person. So inquiring minds totally want to know what the heck you're doing when you're getting up for your, I think you call it your power hour at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I don't know. It's ridiculously early. Mm-hmm. What the heck are you doing?
What do I do? You're like, why are you getting up that early? Yeah. Actually, I've always been a morning person. I remember my dad was a morning person, and he still is. He likes getting up early in the morning and just having his coffee and reading or whatever. I always remember him doing that. And I think that you can train yourself to be the type of person that you want to be, right? And I really wanted to associate, I loved that about my dad. And so I trained myself to be a morning person. I wanted to be just like my dad, right? And so I am the type of person that wakes up early in the morning. And it had nothing to do at the time with that creates success, or all successful people wake up super early, right? I think a lot of people say that, but I also know a lot of people that are really successful that stay up really late too. So if that's not for you, then it's not for you. But then when I was working in corporate and I was trying to build this business, I didn't really have another option in my mind, right? I had to get it done. I had to do this. I had to, continue putting in my work at the corporate job, which was about 60, sometimes 70, 80 hours a week, depending on what I was doing. And I was still working out because that's super important to me. So that wasn't going to slide. And I had to wake up early to get my business stuff done if I really wanted to make that a priority. So I started waking up at 4:30. Which I don't do that anymore, but I was waking up at 4:30, and I know Allie's a morning person too. She wakes up early, and so I was waking up at 4:30, and I was actually doing Miracle Morning. Hal Elrod was a huge inspiration to really put myself first, be really intentional. And so I was actually doing my workouts in the morning because that way I could meet with clients or do this business thing in the evening after my day job, because clients weren't really willing to meet me at 4:30, but I could go meet with myself and do that thing that was really important. Otherwise, you go to the gym at night and it's 7 p.m. by the time you get home. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it started. And now, it started way when I was younger. Actually, even in college, I had a job where I worked at the gym, and my shift started at 5 a.m. And I had my best friend was a graphic design student, and they are creatives and they like to be in the studio at night. And so we both lived in the sorority house, and she would be coming home at 4:30 from the previous day. And I would be going to work when I was in college. And she's like, have a good day. And I'm like, have a good night. We were just it's passing in the night all the time. And so I've always really been a morning person, but really being intentional is super important to me. So now I don't have to wake up super early because this is my full-time business. I could totally sleep in if I wanted to, right? I don't have to go to that corporate job, but I find that I'm a better human when I do. So I, like today I woke up at like 4:45, and I get up and I usually do, like, for the first 30 minutes, I still do like miracle morning type stuff. If you've ever read his book, he talks about doing like affirmations and journaling, visualization. So those are the types of things that I do in the morning. It's not as super strict as maybe people want to hear. It's just kind of like what I feel like doing at that moment in that day, whatever I personally need. So that's kind of like my, what people call mindset work. I just call it like my morning routine just to get my mind right. And then at like once I've done like 30 minutes of that, or whenever I feel complete, then I do my power hour, which is like the most important mission of my day. Like the absolute thing that has to get done to move my business forward, because I find that a lot of people, all of us, are busy, or things come up, or I'm meeting with clients all day. Like a lot of people think, oh, you have you're full-time in your business, so you must have all this time. I'm like, no, because once you have a full client load, like you're meeting with clients all the time. You have appointments, you're on recording podcasts. Like there's not like actually a lot of time like where I'm sitting at my desk doing work, right? So I have to create that time for myself. And so I like doing it first thing so that I know, like when I go into those appointments, when I go into my day, I'm not like during that hour, like I'm not checking Facebook, I'm not checking my email, like I'm doing the thing. And I've like whipped out sales pages. I can write like 5 emails, like sales copy emails, you know, like I can get stuff. I wrote a whole webinar the other day in that time. And then my team, when they get up for the day, can go to work, right, on the stuff that I've actually done. And so then it's not sitting back here. And then I go to the gym, and that's really the morning.
Wow. I mean, like you just gave a lot of great tips, and it all started with you emulating or wanting to emulate your dad. I know, that's really the most beautiful nugget of that story, I think.
And he still does that. Like I still just like I love him so much, and he's just like really a good example. And we always talk about like these mindset, you know, these like your mindset practice, and like my dad doesn't even know what that is, but he's doing it, right? And so that's why I don't really resonate with that term. But I do resonate with like him, like really putting his personal development first. He's always reading. He loves to read. I actually told him the other day, I was talking to him on the phone yesterday, and I said, oh, we just watched Stranger Things on Netflix. You're going to love it. And he's like, I'm just doing a lot of reading right now. I haven't really watched anything. And I was like, oh, there you go again, making me feel like a waste that I just binge watched Stranger Things. I was like, no, you'll like this because it's like 80s sci-fi. And he's like, oh, I'll check it out. So he's like writing it down, but he's just always pouring back into himself. That was always a big priority for him, and to wake up early. And like, I just wanted that special time with him. I wanted to like do what he did. Like I remember even drinking Diet Coke because he liked Diet Coke. And so I would like pretend that it tasted better. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know. I just always remember that. Yeah. Weird tangent, but
these are the details we need to have. You used to drink Diet Coke.
Because my dad drank Diet Coke. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that, right? Like you just want to be like whoever it is that you admire so much, even if you don't know why, right? Like I wanted to be a morning person because I saw how great of a human he was. And I was like, he's a morning person. I want to be like that.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome. And it's like, really a muscle.
Write that. Yeah, it's a muscle. You can write that. You can create that type, like whatever type of person you want to be, like you have the power to create that.
Well, and what do you think, like what characteristic it was? Was there a particular thing about him? You said he was a great human being, but like what made him a great human being?
That's so good, because like the immediate thing that comes to me is his consistent personality. And I think that that also stems from my biological mother being very inconsistent. Like you never knew what you were going to get. And that was like a really traumatic relationship for me. And so to have him, I always knew what I was going to get. Like he was very consistent. You knew when he was upset, but he wasn't going to blow a lid, right? But you knew when you were in trouble. You knew when you were doing something right. He was very vocal and emotive when it came to like, he was really proud of me. Like he, like the one gift that he'll give me like again and again and again is like jewelry, where it's like something in there that says like, I'm proud of you, or like your number one fan. Like, like I have like multiple pieces of jewelry like from my dad, whether it was, remember when like the Tiffany's bracelet was really in style. and it had the heart, and it said like, your number one fan. Like, he's very like vocal about how proud he is of me, but always like so consistent. Like, I always knew what to expect from him. And I guess I pride myself on that, because I also developed that trait within myself. I even asked Tyler, I'm like, what do you think? I was like, do you think that I get like hormonal around like my period? I was like, I don't think that I ever get that way. I was like, have never felt that way. I've never felt like a roller coaster, whereas a lot of people feel like an emotional roller coaster. And I can honestly say that I feel like I've been able to, I guess, and maybe it's a bad thing. Like, maybe my life coach would be like, because you're a control freak, right? But I think that I get that personality trait from him, because I watched him be so consistent, and how much it allowed me to thrive, because he was so consistent, and so consistent with his work, but also so consistent with his emotions and what he put out into the world. And I think a lot of people who follow me would also agree that like, there's tons of consistency there, right? Like, I show up, you know what to expect, it's coming, and I'm not like wishy-washy, you know? And I think that was really important for me, because my mom was so the opposite.
You kind of just streamlined right over, and we do want to know if Tyler said if you get witchy or not.
What did you say?
Let's not gloss over this question.
That actually, he would agree. And if I called him in, he said, because I said, do you think so? Like, do you think? And he said, no, like, he can never like tell, you know, a lot of men are like, oh, I can tell when you're about to get your period, which if you're a man and listening to this, maybe this is helpful for you. If not, I apologize for going there. But yeah, he's like, no, you're not like, not highly emotional, like, or like unexpected highs and lows. That's just not, he's like, yeah, you're really consistent. Like, you never kind of, I'm also very rational, which my brother is as well, which sometimes I'm like overly annoyingly rational is what he does say. Like, when he wants to have like an upset moment, I'm like a problem solver. And that's not always what people need either, you know, like, cause I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Like, this is the situation. So what, like, how can we respond? How can we react? Because we can only control ourselves. Like, so what are we going to do? And sometimes he just wants to like have a moment, you know? So I'm
let's just have a breakdown for a while here.
Yeah, let's just like be upset about it. And I just am not like that at all. Like, I mean, neither is I think my brother and I both get that from my dad. And we're just like very rational and logical. My dad talks about all the time. He always says, he's cautiously optimistic. That's like one of his phrases that he always says. He's like, yeah, I'm like really cautiously optimistic about it. So he's like super optimistic, but cautiously. I'm like, okay, like, he's very like, what you see is what you get.
That's an interesting thing to say, cautiously optimistic. Yeah. Is that like that rational side of him, like going, well, logically, I know that this could work out. So yeah.
I think it's like we want to be optimistic about it. Like, we're going to be optimistic about it. But we also like, there's also a sense of that makes me feel like, but we don't want to get our hopes up too high where you're going to get disappointed or attached to that thing. So I think that's like a cautious, like, yeah, we're cautious. He says that all the time, cautiously optimistic.
Gosh, well, I can see that in you for sure. For sure. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
So kind of we're on the topic of people in your life. I'm curious, since you've started your business, and I know you're about just passing the 1 year mark, has that changed any of your relationships? I mean, doesn't have to be your brother or your dad or Tyler, but has any of your relationships been affected or changed in different ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that always happens to people, and we probably don't talk about it enough because people just think like, oh, something's wrong with me or I'm doing this wrong. But I think, you know, that's one of the core components of self-mastery in my mind, is like really paying attention to those relationships and understanding that as you grow as a human, as you continue to evolve and in different ways, those things are going to be affected. And, you know, definitely my relationship with Tyler has been different, you know, not in a bad way, but in a challenging way, right? Like, I'm earning more. I work a lot more. I'm passionate about something that I'm working on, which if you're not living with an entrepreneur, like if you are not an entrepreneur and you're living with one, it's very hard to understand like why they're like so passionate about work. Because most other people are not, right? Like they're like living for the weekend, and I'm like, even on a Saturday morning, getting up and doing things for my business because they fuel me. And I think if you're not being fueled like that, maybe you have to have a check-in on what's, what you're really working on. And so that relationship has definitely been something we've had to work on. Like we've had in our first year of being together, we didn't really fight that much at all. And there was a lot of commonality because we worked at the same corporation too. So we almost like had that to talk about too. And then when I left, like there was a lot of like me really pursuing my goals and dreams, and he needed to support me like fully to be able to do that. And he did, like he fully stepped in and was super supportive of it. I could not have done what I did over the past year without his support. So that's definitely like strengthened us. But also like I've talked about this a little bit, like the sexual energy has changed in terms of like my masculine is on overdrive when I'm like working on my business. Overdrive.
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, right. And I'm already like a fairly masculine, like I was always a tomboy. Like I've always been like driven, masculine, ambitious energy anyways, like the doer. I've always been the doer. I mean, I was raised by basically a pack of men, like my brother and my dad. I wanted to pee standing up. Like I thought I was a boy. And so now even more so, to be really conscious of that, I think is the key, because otherwise I could, not have sex for weeks. And for right now, that's fine with me. And that's not how I want to be, but that's sometimes what becomes the default. And so I've been being very conscious of those things, I think is important, because you really have to nurture those relationships. With my dad, like definitely different relationships there. It's really interesting to start earning a lot of money and your parents being aware of it, especially when you're doing something. My dad is just so supportive of doing what I love. And he's an entrepreneur, so he gets it. But at first I didn't even tell him what I was doing because I knew that he would be scared that I was leaving corporate because I had a really great job. And because, he spent a lot of years supporting me with my degrees. And so then for me to like leave the corporate job and start my own business, that's a little like, you're doing what? So I had to like actually make money. And I made sure that I had like a sustainable business before I even told them what I was really doing. But yeah, he knows now that it's like successful and that I'm doing something I really love. He's always checking in with me. He's like, you need to take time off. Like he still like worries about me. That's just what he will always do. And he actually is like totally on team Tyler. He's like, you don't appreciate Tyler enough. You need to say thank you more to him. He is so supportive. So that's really funny. I'm like, hey, I thought you were on my team. And then relationships with friends and my brother, like we just moved, both of us I moved in February. He moved last December, and we're like a mile and a half apart now, it's actually been a beautiful relationship for us to move back together. We've always been like best friends. And so nothing really there has changed, but definitely with friends, like I don't really try to explain. They see what I'm doing and I think they're really proud of me. They're like, hey, I see you're like killing it. I don't know what you're doing, but it looks like you're doing awesome. And I'm like, thank you so much. They don't need to understand. And I think a lot of people feel the need to explain themselves, or feel the need to like help their friends get it. And I'm like, I don't need that. Like, they don't need to understand. They need to know that I'm still their friend. Things have changed in my life, in my business, in my pursuits. But I'm still me. And I love that they are like, some of them don't get it and they don't care. And then some of them are just very, like, they've been vocal, like, hey, I saw your live stream. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just so proud of you. And I'm like, well, thank you. That's like super sweet. Some of them have been like inspired to get out of debt, to start businesses. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like my grand little in the sorority, who I'm like very close with, she paid off all her debt after hearing that I paid off all of mine. And I'm like, that's amazing that I could like inspire not just strangers, because that happens all the time, right? Like, which is so super cool. But people that are really close to me that I like really care about, like that they're making changes in their life because I'm being vocal about what I'm doing, not And I think that a lot of people are scared of that. It feels like bragging, or like I don't want to share this like personal stuff with my close friends and family, but you could inspire them to do something that might change their life as well. And so as much as I'm like embarrassed or afraid of that, I also know that it's changed some of their lives.
I have a question for you on your story.
Yeah.
So like when it comes to like sharing, so you're talking about like sharing your story, right? And like obviously like the debt part of the story is, you've been published for that. You've had articles out there in a lot of like really big places, and you're getting like huge interviews now. And so I guess my question is there any like part of your journey that you're still like afraid, or like, I'm not sure. Like every time you go to like start to share it, you're like, it's still like, you're still like in that place. Like maybe it felt like that before you started sharing the paying off debt story and all that stuff, like, cause I think everyone has their like moments where they're just like something changed for me because of that. But I think a lot of people are so afraid to go out there and like say, this was a turning point for me, because they're so afraid to talk about where they were, be vulnerable about where they were and how that changed them, though, even if it caused their transformation. So is there anything that you're like ever, at this point hesitant to talk about that really, really matters, or really was a turning point for you?
Yeah. So, when it like gives you dry mouth to talk about it, that there's probably still stuff there. I'm like, oh God, here comes like the dry mouth, cotton mouth.
Notice she didn't start like just firing off to all speeds ahead. She's like, okay,
let me, yeah, because, it's a great question, because yes, right? Yes. And I'm always like conscious of what part of my story do people need to hear, and what part of it doesn't really matter. And I think that that's really hard for people to even comprehend about their own story. And that's why a lot of people don't share a lot of their story, because they're like, this is so a lot of my story, I think I just blow through as if that's like normal, right? Like even the success that I've had over the past year, like I just think it's like, I'm like, oh, whatever, it's like normal. And I have to have other people like remind me like, no, it's actually pretty incredible. Like it's not that normal. And I'm like, oh, okay. Then I should share that more. Right. So that's one thing that I don't think that I share as vocally, but I think I want to be an advocate for people that are working in integrity, working with true authenticity, and that do share those stories more vocally. So I, since I do want to be an advocate for those people, like I also have to be one of those people. And I think that I don't really do the best job of doing that, because there's a lot of people out there that will share their stories that are not walking in integrity, I think, and could be doing a lot of things, with more generosity, which is part of my mission. And so that's something I need to get better at. I think the parts of my story that I don't share as often, or haven't really so here's the thing, I haven't figured out a way, to make sure they're of value for people. But there are I've overcome a lot of things in my life that I don't think that I talk as in depth about to my audience at large. My biological mother being one of them, and the traumatic relationship that I had as a child, as well as when I started gaining some success, some visible popularity in my own business. Not only did that start to become unearthed for me, but for her, because now she has access, because of the internet, she has access to see all my stuff and listen to my podcast and read the things that I'm doing. And that's very hurtful for her, because I'm sure I don't know how she feels. Obviously, we don't have a relationship, but she does continue to threaten me, tell me to stop sharing this story. And I don't share that as in depth, but I had to get a restraining order last year because of the threats that I was getting. And it's all related back to, she wants me to be that child still that she can get to shut up, right? And so if she's continuing to do that, I really do think it's my job to continue to share the story that's true to me. Her perception might be different, right? And I don't think that I'm trying to change what she perceived happened, but she definitely has a different perception of what happened than I do. And I was like, you know, we both have our sides of the story, but I know what happened to me is true. And, you know, there was abuse, there was alcoholism, there was, you know, at the age of 12, I ended up going to finally live with my dad, which was something I had wanted for years and the court wouldn't let me do it. And so then when that finally happened, I never saw her again. Whether or not she pursued a relationship, she did pursue a relationship, but typically it was late at night, drunk calling, right? And that wasn't the relationship that I wanted. So now that I've seen some success, it's very visible to her, which I'm sure is very hard for her to watch, but she's kind of like that. This is how I am like feeling, is that it's like this, you know, when you break up with an ex and you still love them, you're like almost traumatized so much that like you have to go look. You're like looking, you're like continuing to look at their Facebook profile. You're like, oh, what are they doing? Why are they with that new girl? And I just want to be with them. And so I think part of that is like she has access to look at me now. And that hurts her probably even more so than if she just didn't know what was going on. So that's something I don't really share a lot about because I'm still navigating like what value is that for other people, except that you can overcome anything. It doesn't matter where you come from. Like you can create whatever you want. You can have, you know, this tenacity to live your dreams. As well as like other people cannot shut you up. Like, and if you have a story to share, I think it's really important that you share it regardless of what other people decide that they want or don't want you to do. And that's been like very present in my life over the past year. So that's definitely something which that relationship stirred into multiple, like over 10 years of eating disorders, which I don't talk about because I don't know how relevant it is to my story or to other people, you know, but like definitely a lot of things that made me who I am today, which a lot of people see me as someone who's just like a doer, a go-getter. And I'm like, I have to be like, I've had so much stuff happen that I'm like, there's no stopping me. Like you can't, right? And I think that all of that does lead into this. But I guess to really long-winded answer of that question is I'm trying to figure out how. I'm trying to figure out how to share that more appropriately. But I guess I gave a glimpse of it, which probably my biological mother will hear this episode and and reach out to me again. But it's always in a negative way, which it's not fruitful for a repairing of a relationship. And I'm now an adult and I see that whatever happened as a child and her giving me to my dad at that point was out of love. And I did not see that at the time. Like I felt really betrayed when there was no attempt at a relationship afterwards. But now I'm like, oh, that was like, she loved me. So I do understand that. And I really do feel like sad that she didn't have that relationship. But I'm like, she loved me so much that she knew the best thing for me was to give me to my dad. So I guess I look at it at a different perspective now at this point in my life.
That's awesome. I'm so happy that you shared that. Like not happy that this happened to you, like that this was your like experience, but like, yeah. I hear so many people talk about how afraid they are to share their like kind of moments that led up to them accomplishing what they've accomplished or being the person that they are now, which you're obviously like an amazing human being. And so I think like a lot of the time people really, really worry about like, what's going to happen if my mom listens to this podcast? I've definitely had that fear. And even like talked with her beforehand and said, I want you to know, I'm not asking for permission, but I want you to know that I am going to talk about some things, but know that it's through my own lens and I want you to understand. And you can choose to listen or we can discuss it afterward, but I am going to share certain things that have happened because it's brought me to where I am. So yeah. I think a lot of people still have these like fears, you know, with their own parents or their own upbringing or past boyfriends and stuff like that, that has made them into the person they are. Or even like one of my clients had an affair and it ruined her marriage, but it led to her personal transformation to becoming a relationship coach, right? Like it led to her self-mastery because she literally was that person she didn't want to be for a while. Yeah. So I think I'm really proud of you for like sharing this. And I feel like I just got like a whole nother like
lens. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that takes a lot of courage. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's like conscious courage, right? Conscious courage, because like it is still scary to share, because it's not out of hatred for her at all. It's just my truth. And I do believe that like you said, it's the lens that I have. That's all I have was how I experienced my own life, right? And it's my truth. But to have your truth for someone to try to suffocate your truth is very exhausting. And I don't think that it does anyone else a service. And so I totally relate that other people might be scared. Like even when I was in corporate and I was like vocally being visible with my business, I think people are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I am, but this is like what I really want. This is what I really want. So I'm not going to like suffocate that. I'm not going to, not be visible, because I think not being visible is putting your business at risk. And even more so than my business, there's by sharing some of this story, is like there's lots of people out there that have had like way worse things happen to them, or maybe maybe they had something not as bad and they're like, oh, what am I worried about, right? Like Adrienne's mom sending her death threats, right? Like literally, right? And literally, so I had to go to the police, right? And I think that when we don't share those things, or when we are afraid, but then allow that fear to take over, it doesn't serve us or anyone else. And so I'm like, conscious courage, because it's still scary to share. I like I said, never want to hurt anyone. It's not out of hatred. It's out of love for other people that need to hear that kind of stuff.
I've been obviously just really actively listening, and the word impact keeps coming up for you, and generosity. And I hear those words, knowing you for a long while now, all the time. But I never really hear you very, very specifically talk about your vision and mission. So I'd love to hear that more specifically, where you're at with that and what you're seeing now for yourself coming up.
Yeah, it's so interesting for you to reflect that, because I'm like, oh, interesting that like I don't share the vision.
Yeah, you don't share it. You don't go a line right to it. You kind of do a little bit around it. Mm-hmm. You hear the words, and we know you want to make an impact, and we know you're generous, but what is it exactly that you see your mission as? What are you working towards, or what? I know you have something bigger in mind. Yeah.
So I actually talked to one of my mentors, Todd Herman, about this recently. I was like, sometimes I get caught up with this whole vision thing, this like visionary thing, because I do believe we're all visionaries here in this entrepreneurial space. And I believe that my vision is not as clear as I want it to be sometimes, right? And I think a lot of people can relate to that, but I know that my potential, or my ability to achieve whatever it is that I'm called to do, I know that's available, and that's like way more clear to me than even my vision. So I'm like, I know my ability to achieve it is there. Like it's done, like the potential there. And sometimes like that potential is a little scary, because I'm like, I know what I could do when I put my mind to it, when I'm focused, and the vision tends to be less clear. And he was like, don't worry about that. He's like, it's very normal for your vision to get more clear as you get closer to it, and it will change, right? But just to know that your inevitable success is what you believe in. And I'm like, I do. So for me, like vision and impact, and what my mission is, like my mission is to really help people become their best selves. I think I have this really innate ability to believe in people more than they even believe in themselves at moments, right? And I tell my clients, like, borrow some of the belief that I have in you for a moment until you get your own. And I can see that like within people very quickly, and help pull it out of them. And I have like a really strategic brain, so then I can like help them actually put it into action. But in terms of like so that's like what I feel like I'll always be doing that in some sense of or form, whether or not my businesses change over time. And that's pretty broad, but like my generosity is huge for me, because at one point I felt like really had to work on my money stuff. And I think we all have to over and over again. But I was like, why? Like, I didn't really care to become a millionaire, right? I was like, I don't really care. Like, I have everything I need. I paid off all my debt. I'm financially free. I feel like I'm the richest person in the world. Like, I feel like I have everything I need. I don't need like a luxury lifestyle to like really be happy. And that's like a really cool feeling to know that like I'm really fulfilled right now. And I'm financially secure, which I think is important. But giving was something that was always something very important to me, to give back to people in the world in bigger and better ways. And so generosity is a huge part of my own business model, and it's going to take over a bigger part of my business as well, like something that I really run as like a for-purpose business. And I'm starting that at Good Businesses Do Good. So it's already a landing page. You can go to goodbusinessesdogood.com, and there is something set up there. It's just a landing page where we are going to highlight and amplify businesses that are doing good, because I think we're at this unique space in the economy where entrepreneurs have the ability, or you, even if you're not an entrepreneur, have the ability to become an entrepreneur or run a side hustle or do something in minutes. Like, you can set up a business and you can start making money, and you can put your passions and purpose to work for you. And I think that there's this like negative connotation between service and being paid for that. And I don't. I think that if you're going to be like, I would love for you to run a business where it actually benefits and serves other people. That doesn't have to be a nonprofit, right? Like, run a business that serves other people. And I want to highlight with Good Businesses Do Good, we're going to be highlighting this unique ability that we have to earn more income. But then what are we doing with it, right? Like, are we just buying a yacht? Are we going on vacations? Are we buying a $2 million house, a new Mercedes? Like, those things are great. And I think that you should have those too, if those fulfill something for you. Like, not all of those things fulfill something for me, which is fine. I have a Ford Focus paid for in cash. It's like the shittiest little car, but we love it. And we're a 1-car family. Like, people always ask, like, they're always curious about like what I spend my money on. It's not that, like, it's just not. So I think that having those things is great. I don't want to downplay or downgrade those things, but I think if you are like have the potential to earn limitless income, which we do, you're not at a capped income like you are in a corporate or 9-to-5 job. You need to be giving in bigger and better ways. And so Good Businesses Do Good is going to be amplifying businesses that are using generosity in their business models, whether that is giving a % of their income to specific causes, or maybe it's hiring domestic violence, women who have experienced domestic violence. That's a way to give back, right? Or I've seen just some really interesting business models already just by starting to talk about this movement. And so like really highlighting those businesses, and the idea itself is still fleshing out about how we make that more of a movement for people to really get on board with. And it's proven that people spend more money on businesses that are socially conscious businesses. So it's in your best interest, right? Like, don't you want to do business with people that are doing good, right? So I want to highlight these businesses and give them like a stamp of approval, almost like a Good Businesses Do Good stamp of approval on your website. You're a Good Business Does Good type of business. And so we're still fleshing out all the details for that, but that's like, that's part of my bigger vision, because it is such a big part of my own business. I actually am in conjunction with 2 nonprofits. One is called the Adventure Project, and I'm going to be going to Africa with them very soon. So I'm really excited to help them, because they are a nonprofit that works on empowering entrepreneurs in developing companies, because most people don't want handouts, right? And that's what most charities do. They give handouts to people who really want to feel of value. It's in our human spirit to want to work. So when you're born an entrepreneur, you're born an entrepreneur, whether or not you were born poor or born in a first world country. Like, so that the Adventure Project gives these entrepreneurs in developing countries the opportunity to be entrepreneurs. And so I'm going to go over to Africa with them and see what our money is actually helping create there, which is really cool, because we'll be giving tens of thousands of dollars to them this year and even more next year. So I'm excited.
That's fabulous. I can't believe how fast the time has gone. Like,
I know. I think
we could have like a 4-hour interview with Adrienne Dorison here.
You want to do a 4-part series?
I was just going to say, maybe, Allie, you have one burning question left before we wrap up.
Oh my God, I have like too many.
And if people like this episode, we can always do another one if people respond well to it. If they don't respond well, then we know they don't care about anything I've said.
Well, I think so you are really, really action oriented, and we all see that all the time. Like, and you're obviously speaking to that really well right now. Like, I decide I want something and I know I can do it, so I do it. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about like, you do work a lot right now and stuff. And so what do you actually do to have fun? Like, I mean, I know you have fun in your business, which is why you work so much, which is great. But like, what do you do to like take time, like, off, like away? Like, are you the shut the cell phone off type? Are you the Netflix binge type? Are you the I'm gonna go hike a 14er type? Like, what's like your thing?
Tacos, number one, right? And I know Allie appreciates that. She likes burritos.
I do.
So yeah, there's a few things that I love, and this is part of like my non-negotiables. And I think that people see how much I work, and they're always like worried about my self-care, and I'm like, honestly, I think I'm one of the people that takes care of themselves. Like, that comes first to me. I did this in a live stream. Like, I work a lot, I hustle, but I'm not burning myself out because I take care of myself first. I have like non-negotiables that have to happen for me to unwind, to tap back into who I am. And then I don't think it matters what I do with the rest of the hours in the day. It doesn't matter how much I work if I'm like taking care of those non-negotiables. So CrossFit, like, I work out all the time. Like, that's huge for me. And some people think, oh, that's not fun. Like, that's like you have to do. No, like, that's like something I actually really love. I've always been an athlete, and it's brought this, like, I do triathlon as well. And that is an outlet for me. Going for a run, like you said, going for a hike. If we had mountains, I would definitely go for more hikes. I live in Florida, so we don't do that as often, but I do like taking the dogs for a walk. I do that daily, where we take long walks with the dogs, and even just playing with the dogs, like, it makes like anything to like make me laugh, get me back into, like, I'm a super goofy person. Like, I'll just walk into the living room and start twerking, and Tyler's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, right? Like, I really love life, I think, and so just enjoying those moments, watching my dogs play and giggle, and they don't giggle, but I do. So that's like something I do to recharge. Definitely being around family, like doing family dinners and stuff like that, because now that we're finally like close to family, I've been away from family since I left high school, really. Like, I've been very nomadic, and it has never scared me to like move to a new place and know absolutely no one. Like, I've done that probably 5 or 6 times, where I've moved to a place where I drove to the place, and that was the first time I ever saw the place, right? Like, when I moved to Athens for grad school, I drove to the house that I had rented on the internet. I was like, here I come, right? Like, and I didn't know a single soul there. I did that multiple times. That doesn't bother me at all. But like, now that I'm close to family, it's nice to get to like do our workouts and have a little chat here and there. But I'm also like, I like my alone time. So Tyler and I both work at home. We both live at home. And so I'm like, you should go play Pokemon for a few hours, right? And I'm just going to sit here and read or do whatever. We definitely have like a Netflix series addiction. Like, we love how good TV series are right now. And so that's something that we always like pick a show that we're watching together. And that's kind of like our treat at the end of the night. Like, we spend time together, like watching that show, like an episode of that show. I try not to watch too many episodes of one show at night, because I try to go to bed early, but sometimes I'm like, oh, just one more. I just want to watch one more. I can't take it.
Because it's like such a good cliffhanger, and they're just like right there. That's how I stay up too late sometimes.
That was so hard for me. Like, this was the first time, like, I love Game of Thrones, and I was watching Game of Thrones like live this time, whereas before I got to binge on like every episode. And so when I had to like wait a week, I was like, no. We can't wait a week. What am I gonna do? And Tyler was like, you have to wait. Like, there's no option. Those are like some of the things I just music. I love music, so I'll like play crazy music and dance and sing. Tyler has like this thing where he likes to like, he gets sick of a song like before it even ends, whereas I actually listen to songs on repeat until I know all the words.
Oh, I know. I do that too. Like Justin Bieber, if he has like a new song that comes out, my husband's like, I'm going to shove a pillow over your face.
He's like,
turn this off because I'm
how many times are you going to listen to that same Beyonce? He's like, again. I'm like, again. But that's like so fun for me just to like be in that mood, you know. I think you can't not listen to, like, inside of my group program Profit Track, like we have like a playlist, like a running playlist. I'm like, put your song on there because you can't stay in a bad mood when you like listen to your favorite songs.
Right.
If you can, reach out to me because I think you're crazy. I'd love to hear from you.
Like, what do? Do you sit in silence?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So which one are you learning all the words to right now?
Oh, okay. Right now, let me share with you what my song is. I have it on my Spotify, and Tyler will attest to this because I've been playing it a lot. So I go to he goes, I'm feeling a little sour today because you haven't played any sugar pop for me. He calls it all my like pop songs. So I've been listening to Calvin Harris and Rihanna's "This Is What You Came For" a lot, and Drake and Rihanna's "Too Good." So I'm really like into Rihanna, I guess, right now. And like when I'm in the shower, my voice sounds exactly like hers. So I try to. It's good. I'm like, I'm really good. I don't know about. It's fun. It's fun to like pretend you're a singer. That lifestyle appeals to me, except for I know it's really hard work. It's just as hard
for the singing
for the singing part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to like dance on stage and like get paid for that. Until I had to do it, probably.
We just got some foreshadowing as to what might be next for Adrienne.
Yeah.
If anyone out there has the opportunity for a record deal, if you want to like, you know, make that a thing, I'm available. Yeah.
Well, my dear, thank you so much. I think we covered a lot.
We did.
We got twerking. We got I don't want to have sex for a few weeks.
Yeah.
We got all the way deep
sex on Sundays at least.
We had to make a mention of like tacos versus garbage burritos, and
it's been really, really fun. I appreciate you both for digging some of this stuff out of me and giving me the safe space to share and feel like I was just talking to my friends in a room versus this is going live on the podcast where tens of thousands of people will listen to it, which is beautiful. And I appreciate you guys flipping the script and interviewing me. If you guys haven't listened to Allie's or Michelle's interview, you guys should go do that as well. And if people liked this, let me know. We'll do another because I know that there's probably other questions. And if you liked it and you have specific questions, send those in. I'm happy to get these ladies to do this again for you, be your representatives. And answer any questions that you all have. So if this like pulled up any questions like, ooh, I would love to know that about Adrienne, let me know. I'm really an open book. It's just sometimes you don't know what people want to know, so you end up not sharing, right? So ladies, thank you. And
thank you.
We'll see you next time on the School of Self-Mastery.
Bye.
Bye.